He found her in a campa. She was the key to an empire. Captain Noah Drake's ship glided through the black expanse of space, the stars twinkling like distant diamonds in the void. It had been months since Noah had last seen a friendly face, months since he had felt the warmth of a real home. Now, he was heading toward an abandoned colony deep in the uncharted sector. A sector no one dared to explore due to the rumors of alien invaders and dangerous conditions. But orders were orders, and Noah had never been one to back down from a mission. His ship, a sleek military-grade vessel, cut through the dark void, its engines humming softly. He stared at the map on the holographic screen in front of him, studying the coordinates of the forgotten colony. It had once been a thriving settlement, a symbol of humanity's reach into the stars. But now it was nothing more than a dot on the map, a place spoken about only in whispers. Noah sighed, pushing the thoughts of his distant family out of his mind. The job came first. He'd been ordered to assess the situation at the colony and, if possible, bring back any survivors. But as his ship descended toward the planet's atmosphere, he couldn't help but wonder what he would find. Was there anyone left? Or was the planet simply a graveyard for a failed experiment? The planet below looked desolate, a dull gray landscape covered in dust and ash. The once gleaming city streets now lay buried under centuries of neglect. As the ship touched down, the engines powered down with a soft whine, and Noah felt the familiar weight of the airlock seals engaging. It was time. Stepping out onto the dusty ground, Noah surveyed his surroundings. The atmosphere was thin but breathable, and the planet had a haunting quietness about it. His boots crunched on the dry ground as he made his way toward the colony. The only sound was the wind, carrying with it the scent of something long dead. He reached the outskirts of what remained of the settlement and looked around. The buildings were a mix of crumbling structures and makeshift shelters. It was clear that whoever had lived here had been forced to adapt, surviving in a place that nature had long since reclaimed. His eyes scanned the area, but there was no sign of life, at least not at first glance. Just as he was about to turn back, a faint movement caught his eye. A figure was standing in the shadow of one of the ruined buildings, half hidden from view. Noah instinctively reached for his weapon, but before he could take another step, the figure stepped out into the open. It was a woman, young but with an air of experience far beyond her years. Her hair was a tangled mess and her clothes were tattered, yet she stood tall, her eyes piercing through the dust-filled air. She held herself with a quiet strength, a survivor in a world that had forgotten how to survive. Noah's hand hesitated over his weapon. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious. The woman didn't answer immediately. She simply studied him, her eyes narrowing as if weighing his every move. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "My name is Alara," she said, her voice surprisingly calm, considering the desolation around her. "And I'm the last of my people." Noah felt a chill run down his spine. The last of her people, what had happened here? He couldn't help but wonder if she was somehow connected to the colony's fall. But there was something about her that made him pause. She didn't look like a survivor of some disaster. She looked like she had lived through something much more complicated. "How long have you been here?" Noah asked, lowering his hand from his weapon. Alara glanced at the sky, her expression unreadable. "Longer than I'd like to admit," she said quietly, "but I've learned how to survive." Noah took a step forward, cautious but determined. "Is there anyone else? Are there any other survivors?" Her gaze shifted to the ruins around them, her eyes filled with a sadness that Noah could not quite place. "There were, once," she replied, her voice tinged with a quiet sorrow. "But they're all gone now, some died. Some left and the rest, well, they vanished." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Noah felt the weight of them, but there was something else, something unspoken that he couldn't ignore. Alara wasn't just any survivor. There was something about her that seemed different. "I don't understand," Noah said, his brow furrowing. "What happened here?" Alara didn't answer right away. She turned, her eyes scanning the horizon as if she were looking for something. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "This colony wasn't just a settlement," she said. "It was a place where something important was hidden, a place where humanity's future was meant to be shaped." Noah blinked. "What do you mean?" She glanced at him, her expression sharp. "I can't explain it all right now, but I know that I'm not just some random survivor. I was chosen. I was meant to be here, and what's hidden here, it's the key to an empire." Noah took a step back, his mind racing. Key to an empire? What was she talking about? Could this be some kind of trap, or was she simply delusional from years of isolation? But there was something in her eyes, a glint of certainty that made him think twice. "How can you be so sure?" he asked, his voice steady. Alara's eyes locked onto his. "Because I remember, bits and pieces, scattered fragments, but enough to know that what's hidden here is powerful. It could change everything." Noah didn't know what to make of her words. A key to an empire. It sounded impossible. But then again, he had seen too much in his years as a soldier to dismiss anything as impossible. And something about Alara's presence felt important, like she knew more than she was letting on. Maybe she had answers. And maybe, just maybe, she was the key to humanity's survival. "I came here looking for survivors," Noah said, his voice calm but firm. "But it looks like you're not just a survivor. You're part of something bigger, something I don't understand yet. But I'm willing to find out. Will you help me?" Alara studied him for a long moment, her gaze unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "I'll help you," she said, "but only if you promise one thing." Noah raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "That you won't stop looking for the truth, because once you start, there's no going back. We'll either make it through together or we'll die trying." Noah's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. "I promise." And with that, the two of them set off, side by side, into the ruins of a lost colony that held the secrets of humanity's past and possibly its future. Together, they would uncover what had been hidden for so long. And whatever lay ahead, Noah knew one thing for certain. Their journey had only just begun. Noah and Alara traveled deeper into the forgotten colony, their footsteps echoing through the silence that surrounded them. The dusty air felt thick, heavy with the weight of time. Once a bustling settlement, the colony now seemed like a ghost of its former self, its buildings crumbling and its streets empty. Yet, despite the desolation, there was something undeniably strange about the place. The atmosphere seemed to hum with an energy that Noah couldn't explain, something that felt both ancient and alive. They passed rows of decaying structures, some of which looked like they had been abandoned for centuries. There were no signs of other survivors, no traces of life except for the occasional rustling of the wind. But Noah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every now and then, his eyes would flicker to the shadows, but each time he would find nothing. It was unsettling. Alara, on the other hand, moved with a quiet confidence as though she knew exactly where she was going. She didn't seem afraid, not like Noah. She walked with purpose, her eyes scanning the horizon, her every step deliberate. It was as if she had been here before, as if she had always known that she would return. Noah couldn't help but wonder what secrets she was hiding, what history she had that she wasn't ready to share. But for now, he kept his questions to himself. They reached the heart of the colony after what felt like hours. In the center of the ruined city stood a massive structure, half buried in the earth. It was an old building, clearly not designed for ordinary use. Its walls were covered in strange markings, symbols that Noah didn't recognize, and its architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It looked ancient, yet somehow new, as though it had been untouched for centuries but had recently awakened. Alara paused in front of the structure, her expression unreadable. For a moment, she simply stared at the building as though she was waiting for something. Noah stood beside her, his curiosity growing by the second. What was this place? And why had Alara brought him here? Finally, Alara spoke. Her voice was soft, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "This is it," she said. "This is where it all began." Noah's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" She turned to face him, her eyes steady and serious. "This building. It's not just a structure, it's a vault, a storage place for something humanity once possessed, something they thought they had lost." She paused, taking a deep breath. "It's the key to the empire," Noah frowned. "Empire. You're telling me this place holds the answer to rebuilding humanity?" Alara nodded slowly, her gaze returning to the building. "Not just rebuilding," she said, "but expanding. This technology. It was designed to create a new era for humanity. One that would take us beyond the stars, beyond anything we ever imagined. But it was hidden, buried, lost to time. And now it's here, it's waiting." Noah's mind raced. The implications of her words were too massive to comprehend. A key to an empire. A technology capable of taking humanity to the stars. It sounded like something out of a legend, a story told around a campfire, not a reality. But then again, what did he really know? He had seen his fair share of strange things in his time as a soldier, but this was something different. He looked at Alara, searching her face for any signs of doubt. but all he saw was determination. She believed in this, believed that what was hidden in that building was the answer to humanity's survival. "Are you sure about this?" Noah asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "How do we know it's real?" Alara turned to him, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "I don't know everything," she admitted, "but I know enough. I've seen the symbols, the blueprints. This place, it's the last hope for humanity, and we need to unlock it before it's too late." Noah nodded slowly, his mind still reeling from the enormity of what she was saying. It was hard to wrap his head around the idea that this woman, this survivor, held the key to something so powerful. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't walk away from this. Whatever it was, whatever they were about to uncover, it was worth the risk. Alara led the way into the building, her footsteps echoing through the silent halls. The interior was dark, the only light coming from the dim glow of Noah's flashlight. The walls were covered in strange carvings, symbols that seemed to shift and change as they moved past them. It was like nothing Noah had ever seen before. He couldn't make sense of it, but it was clear that this place had once been a place of great significance. They walked deeper into the structure, the air growing colder as they went. The temperature seemed to drop with every step, as though they were descending into some forgotten tomb. It was a chilling feeling, but Noah pressed on, his mind focused on the task at hand. At the center of the building, they found a large stone door, its surface covered in more of the strange symbols. Alara stopped in front of it, her hand resting on the cool stone. "This is it," she said, her voice almost reverent. "Behind this door is what we've been looking for." Noah stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "What's behind it?" Alara hesitated for a moment before speaking. "The key," she said softly, "the power to rebuild." Without another word, she began to trace the symbols on the door with her fingers. Noah watched her, unsure of what she was doing. Was she unlocking something, activating some kind of ancient mechanism? Then, with a deep rumble, the door began to move. Slowly at first and then faster, until it finally swung open with a loud creak, revealing a room bathed in a faint blue light. The room was unlike anything Noah had ever seen, filled with strange machines, glowing panels, and artifacts that seemed far too advanced for anything humanity had ever built. It was a treasure trove of forgotten technology, a museum of the future that had never come to be. Alara stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room with a mixture of awe and recognition. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what they left behind." Noah followed her, his eyes wide as he took in the sight before him. It was incredible. The technology in this room was unlike anything he had ever seen, far beyond anything the human race had developed. It was almost as if humanity had been on the verge of something extraordinary, only to have it all slip through their fingers. As they explored the room, Alara moved toward one of the panels, her fingers dancing over its surface. The panel hummed to life, glowing brightly as a holographic display appeared before them. The display showed a complex network of stars, planets, and systems, all connected by glowing lines of light. "This," Alara said, her voice filled with wonder, "is a map of the future, a future where humanity rules the stars." Noah stared at the map, his mind racing with possibilities. If what Alara said was true, if this technology could really unlock humanity's potential, it could change everything. But at the same time, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with something dangerous, something that might be too powerful to control. Before he could speak, Alara turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to activate it," she said. "We need to take this back. If we don't, everything we've fought for will have been for nothing." Noah felt the weight of her words. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. But as he looked at the technology before him, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of unease. What if they weren't ready for this? What if activating this power would only lead to their destruction? But there was no turning back now. He nodded, swallowing the fear that threatened to rise in his chest. "Let's do it," he said. "Let's unlock humanity's future." And together, they began to activate the ancient technology, not knowing that this decision would lead them down a path that would change the course of history forever. The hum of the ancient machinery filled the air as Alara and Noah stood before the glowing panel. The map of stars and galaxies continued to shift in the air, displaying a vast network of connections, planets, moons, and star systems all linked by the faint glowing lines of light. It was a map of the future, a future that seemed impossibly distant, but in reality was just within their reach. Alara's fingers moved over the holographic interface with practiced ease, her eyes focused as she deciphered the glowing symbols that filled the air. Noah stood a few steps behind her, his eyes fixed on the map, his mind racing. The possibilities seemed endless. What if this technology, this map, could really help humanity reclaim its place among the stars? What if they could rebuild what had been lost and create something new? Something powerful enough to push back the alien forces that had once decimated humanity's colonies. But there was also the creeping doubt, the fear that they might be unlocking something too dangerous to control. The more Noah thought about it, the more he realized that they weren't just dealing with technology, they were dealing with something that could change the very course of history. The implications were staggering. Could they really be ready for such a responsibility? Could humanity? Are you sure this is safe? Noah finally asked, breaking the silence that had fallen over them. His voice was steady, but there was an underlying tension in it. We don't know what kind of power we're dealing with here. Alara didn't look up from the panel, but Noah could feel her focus sharpen. Nothing worth having ever comes without risk, she said softly, her voice full of certainty. We can't be afraid of what's to come. This is humanity's chance to rise again. We can't waste it. Noah wasn't so sure. He had seen too many soldiers, too many innocent people, crushed under the weight of decisions that had seemed right at the time but had led to disaster. He had seen the wreckage of war, the devastation left in its wake. This, whatever it was, felt like a weapon, a powerful one, and he didn't know if they were ready to wield it. Ilara's fingers paused for a moment as she reached one of the symbols on the panel. A loud click echoed in the room, followed by a soft whirring noise. Noah's breath caught in his throat as the map shifted, and a new display appeared. This one was even more detailed, showing a web of connections between systems and energy sources. But there was something else in the new display, a series of words in a language that Noah couldn't recognize, a string of symbols that seemed to pulse with an energy all their own. Ilara looked at the display, her eyes widening with recognition. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what we've been searching for, the core." Noah took a step forward, his curiosity piqued despite his reservations. "The core," Ilara nodded, her gaze never leaving the display. "Yes, the core is the heart of the technology. It's what powers the entire network, the energy source that could give humanity the power to rebuild, to expand, to control the stars." She turned to face Noah, her expression intense. "But it's not just a power source, it's a weapon. A weapon that can change the course of this war. It's the key to defeating the alien invaders." Noah's mind raced as he processed her words. A weapon? That was the part he had feared. They had just unlocked the key to an ancient, powerful weapon, and Alara was talking about using it to fight back against the aliens. He had seen the destruction those invaders were capable of. But was it worth the risk? Could they truly control such a power? "Alara, are you sure we should?" he began, but she cut him off, her voice firm. "There's no turning back now," she said. "We've already started this. The core is what we need to rebuild. We can't waste it. We can't wait for another chance." Noah felt the weight of her words, and he knew she was right in some ways. They had come this far, and if they didn't act, humanity might never get another opportunity. But the question still lingered, would they be able to control it? Would they survive the consequences of unlocking something so powerful? Before Noah could respond, a soft chime echoed through the room. The map had shifted again, and this time a new section of the wall had slid open, revealing a narrow corridor that led deeper into the structure. The air around them felt colder now, the hum of the machines growing louder, almost like a warning. Ilara stepped forward without hesitation, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. Noah hesitated for a moment, watching her. He could see the determination in her eyes, the resolve that had carried her this far. He knew she wasn't going to stop now, not when they were so close to uncovering the truth. So, with a sigh, he followed her into the corridor. The passage was dark, its walls lined with more of the strange symbols. The air grew colder with every step they took, and Noah could feel the tension building in his chest. They were heading deeper into the heart of this place, deeper into the unknown. He had no idea what they would find, but he knew they couldn't turn back now. As they walked, the corridor seemed to stretch on forever. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the sound of their footsteps echoed like distant thunder. Ilara moved with purpose, her steps quick and sure. Noah, however, felt the weight of each step more than he had before. The deeper they went, the more he felt like they were crossing a line, one that could never be uncrossed. Finally, they reached the end of the corridor. Before them stood a massive door, its surface covered in the same symbols they had seen throughout the building. The door was made of some kind of metal, its surface smooth and cold to the touch. Alara didn't hesitate. She moved forward, her hand resting on the door's surface. She pressed a sequence of symbols, and the door groaned as it slowly opened, revealing a room bathed in an eerie blue light. Noah's breath caught in his throat as he stepped inside. The room was massive, its ceiling stretching high above them. In the center of the room stood a large pedestal, and upon it was a glowing object, the core. It was the size of a small moon, its surface shifting and pulsating with energy. The object seemed to hum with power, and Noah could feel the energy radiating from it, filling the room with an intense, almost overwhelming presence. Alara stepped forward, her expression filled with awe and reverence. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the heart of everything, the core that will save humanity." Noah stood frozen for a moment, taking in the sight before him. The object was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was as if it had been crafted by a race far beyond humanity, a race that understood the secrets of the universe in ways they could never imagine. And yet, here it was, waiting for them to unlock its potential. "Alara," Noah said softly, his voice filled with wonder, "Is this really it?" She nodded, her eyes never leaving the core. "Yes, it's everything we need. All we have to do is activate it." Noah took a deep breath, stepping forward. His mind was racing with questions, with fears, with doubts. But one thing was clear, the future of humanity was in their hands. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. With a steady hand, Alara reached out and placed her palm on the core. The room seemed to come alive with energy, the walls vibrating as the core pulsed with light. For a moment, everything went still. Then, with a flash of blinding light, the core activated. The room was filled with a deafening hum as the core's energy surged through the building. Noah could feel the power radiating from it, and he knew in that moment that they had just set into motion something that would change everything. They had unlocked the key to humanity's future. But the question still remained, what would they do with it? As the light began to fade, Alara turned to Noah, her eyes filled with a mix of triumph and uncertainty. "It's done," she said softly. "We have what we need. Now we just have to use it." Noah looked at her, his heart pounding in his chest. The journey was far from over, and he knew that this was just the beginning. But for the first time in a long while, he felt hope. Hope that humanity could rise again, that they could fight back and reclaim what had been lost. Together, they had unlocked the future. But now it was up to them to shape it. The hum of the core filled the room, its pulsing energy echoing in Noah's chest as he stood motionless, taking in what they had just unlocked. The power emanating from it was unlike anything he had ever experienced, pure, raw, and intense. It was as if the very fabric of the universe itself was contained within this glowing orb. He could feel it vibrating through the air, each pulse pushing against his body, urging him to act. But what was the right course of action? Alara stood beside him, her face illuminated by the strange blue light. She was staring at the core, her expression a mix of awe and uncertainty. She had unlocked this power, but even now, as she stood so close to it, the weight of what they had just done was beginning to settle over her. She had no idea what would happen next, and neither did Noah. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of the core, filling the space with an otherworldly presence. It was as if time had slowed, and Noah could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was no going back now. They had opened a door, and they had no idea what lay on the other side. Finally, Noah broke the silence. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Alara turned to him, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Now we take what we've learned and use it," she said, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "We take the power of this core and we use it to fight back. We have the chance to build a new empire, to take humanity's future into our hands. But it won't be easy. There will be resistance. There always is." Noah nodded, his thoughts racing. He had known this wasn't going to be simple. The alien forces that had decimated humanity's colonies were not going to sit idly by while they activated a weapon like this. He could already hear the distant echoes of battle in his mind, the clash of weapons, the sound of alien ships crashing against human defenses. The question was not whether they would fight, but whether they were ready for the fight that was coming. "I don't know if we can control it," Noah said quietly. We've unleashed something powerful, but powerful things have a way of slipping out of control. We could be risking everything by using it. Alara met his gaze, her expression unwavering. I understand your concerns, she said softly, but we don't have the luxury of hesitation. The aliens won't wait for us to figure things out, and we've already lost so much. If we don't act now, it will all be for nothing. Noah didn't have an answer. He knew Alara was right. The aliens were out there, waiting, watching, and humanity's survival hung in the balance. But the question still lingered. Could they control this power, or would it consume them? Before he could respond, the core emitted a sudden burst of light, brighter than before. Noah and Alara instinctively stepped back, their eyes squinting against the intensity. The light faded just as quickly as it had come, leaving behind a deep, resonating silence. For a moment, Noah thought the core had malfunctioned, but then a low rumble echoed from deep within the structure, followed by the sound of machinery powering up. The walls of the room seemed to shift, and Noah could feel the ground beneath him tremble. The core was awakening, and it was no longer just a passive power source. It was activating, responding to something deep within the facility. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone, and Noah could hear the faint sound of distant voices, voices that seemed to be calling out from the depths of the building. It was as if the entire structure was coming to life, responding to the energy that had been unleashed. Alara, Noah said urgently, stepping closer to her. What's happening? Alara's eyes widened as she turned to face him, her face pale. It's the core, she whispered. It's reacting to something we didn't expect. Noah's mind raced. What had they awakened? And was it something they could control? He had no answers, only the sense that they had just crossed a threshold they could never uncross. The ground beneath them shook violently, and Noah grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her back as the room around them seemed to shift and bend. The walls cracked, and the ceiling groaned under the strain of the core's power. For a moment, Noah thought the entire structure was going to collapse, but then the shaking stopped. The silence returned, but it was a different kind of silence, one that was thick with anticipation. Noah stood motionless, his heart pounding in his chest. What had just happened? What had they unlocked? He couldn't shake the feeling that they had unleashed something much bigger than they had anticipated. Alara, he began, but before he could say anything more, a loud, mechanical voice echoed through the room, reverberating off the walls. Humanity is ready for ascension, the voice said, its tone cold and detached. The core has been activated, all systems are now online. Noah's heart skipped a beat. The voice, artificial but undeniably real, sounded as if it came from the very walls around them. The core had triggered something far beyond their comprehension. Alara, what is that? Noah demanded, his voice tense. What is going on here? Alara stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock. It's not just a weapon, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's a system, a network, a way to control the stars. Noah's mind reeled as he tried to make sense of her words. A network. What did that mean? Was this some kind of massive, galaxy-wide system that humanity had built long ago and forgotten? Was it a control system, or was it something more? And what had they just unleashed by activating it? The voice continued, its tone unwavering. The Empire shall rise again. The core has chosen you as its bearer. You are the key to the new order. Alara stood frozen, her face pale as she absorbed the implications of the voice's words. The new order, she repeated, her voice shaky. It's not just about fighting the aliens, it's about control, the power to rule. Noah felt a wave of nausea wash over him. This was more than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just about survival, it was about domination. The core had chosen them as its bearers, and with that came a responsibility, one that Noah wasn't sure he was ready for. Alara, he began, but she turned to him, her face hardening with resolve. We have no choice, she said, her voice filled with determination. We've unlocked the power to reshape the future. This is our chance to take back what was stolen from us, to reclaim the galaxy. Noah could see the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had driven her this far. But as he looked into her eyes, he felt a deep, gnawing fear take hold of him. They were about to play a dangerous game, one that could change everything. And there was no way of knowing how it would end. Alara, I don't know if we're ready for this, Noah said quietly. This is more than we bargained for. She met his gaze, her expression unwavering. We don't have a choice, Noah, she said firmly. The core has chosen us. And now we must choose how to use its power. Noah looked at the glowing core, its energy pulsing in the air around them. It was clear that this was only the beginning. What they had unleashed was far more than just a weapon. It was the key to a new empire. The question was, would they use it to rebuild, or would they become the very thing they had fought against? With a deep breath, Noah made his decision. "Let's move forward," he said, his voice filled with a quiet resolve. "But we do it carefully. We don't let the power control us." Ilara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. Together, they had unlocked the future. Now it was up to them to decide how to shape it. The days that followed the activation of the core were filled with uncertainty. The hum of the power that had awakened in the building never stopped, a constant reminder of the force they had unleashed. The core had chosen them. It had called out to them, and now they were its bearers. The weight of that responsibility hung heavy over Noah and Ilara. They had unlocked the key to a new empire, a power that could change the course of history. But what would they do with it? Could they control it, or would it consume them? The building had transformed after the core activated. The walls, once worn and crumbling, now seemed to pulse with life, glowing faintly, as if the structure itself had become part of the system they had uncovered. Ilara spent most of her time studying the maps and symbols that appeared on the walls, trying to make sense of the complex network they had just tapped into. It was like a web of knowledge, one that spanned across galaxies, linking planets and systems together with an energy that hummed in the air around them. Noah had spent his days pacing the halls, his mind racing with questions. They had unlocked a future for humanity, a future where they could take back control of their colonies, where they could fight back against the alien invaders who had destroyed so much. But there were dangers, too. The more Noah thought about it, the more he realized that they were playing with something far beyond their understanding. What if the core's power was too much for them to control? What if, in trying to rebuild humanity, they ended up destroying it? He found Ilara one evening, standing alone in the center of the building, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the core's energy. She was staring at the map, her fingers tracing the lines of light that connected the planets and systems. There was a look of determination in her eyes, but also something else, something darker. "Ilara," Noah called softly, stepping closer. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "We're so close," she said quietly. "I can feel it." "We're on the verge of something huge, Noah. This is our chance to take back what we lost, to build a new future for humanity." Noah nodded, but the doubt in his chest still lingered. "I know, but at what cost?" Ilara's eyes softened as she studied him. "I understand your concerns," she said gently. "I've had them too, but sometimes we have to take risks. Sometimes we have to step into the unknown and trust that we can handle the power we've uncovered." Noah shook his head. "But what if we can't? What if this power is too much for us to control?" Ilara stepped forward, her expression hardening. "We have to believe that we can. If we don't, then what was the point of everything we've done? What was the point of unlocking the core, of finding the key to humanity's future, if we're just going to stand back and let it slip through our fingers?" Noah looked at her, and for a moment he saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had driven her to this point. She believed in this. She believed in the power of the core, but Noah wasn't so sure. There was something in his gut, something deep inside him that told him they were standing on the edge of something dangerous. He had seen too much destruction in his life to ignore that feeling. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he said quietly. "I don't know if humanity is." Ilara reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip firm. "We don't have a choice. We're already in this, Noah. And we have to see it through." Noah let out a long breath, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. She was right. They had already crossed the line. There was no turning back now. They had unlocked the core, and now they had to decide how to use its power. But how? And at what cost? Over the next few days, Ilara worked tirelessly to decipher the core's energy patterns, mapping out the pathways of power that stretched across the galaxy. The more she studied it, the more she realized the scope of what they had uncovered. The core wasn't just a weapon. It was a system, a network that could connect every human settlement across the stars, a way to rebuild what had been lost. But there were dangers, too. As Ilara worked, she began to uncover hidden layers within the core's systems, layers that seemed to be locked away, protected by intricate codes and patterns. They weren't sure what these layers contained, but one thing was clear. The core's power was not meant to be unleashed lightly. Whoever had built it, whoever had created this system, had placed safeguards in place to prevent it from being misused. One evening, as Noah walked into the central chamber, he found Alara standing in front of the core, her face pale. She was staring at the holographic map, her fingers trembling as she traced a pattern on the glowing surface. "Alara?" Noah asked, his voice laced with concern. "What's wrong?" Alara turned to him, her expression grim. "I've unlocked something," she said softly, "something that was never meant to be found." Noah's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Alara swallowed hard. "The core isn't just a tool to rebuild humanity. It's a tool to control it. There's a layer within the system, a hidden protocol that overrides everything. It's a fail-safe, a way to ensure that whoever controls the core has absolute power over the entire network." Noah's stomach dropped. "Are you saying that whoever controls the core can control everything?" Alara nodded slowly, her eyes wide with fear. "Yes, and if we don't understand it fully, if we don't learn how to control it, then we could end up becoming the very thing we've been fighting against." Noah took a step back, his mind racing. This was worse than he had feared. They had unlocked a power, a weapon, and now they were learning that it came with a terrible price. If they couldn't control it, if they couldn't unlock the fail-safe, they would risk becoming tyrants, ruling over the galaxy with the same brutality that had been used against them. "We have to fix this," Noah said urgently. "We have to shut it down before it's too late." Alara shook her head. "It's not that simple. The core is already active. We can't just shut it down. We have to find a way to control it to make sure it doesn't control us." Noah looked at her, his mind spinning. They had awakened something that could either save humanity or destroy it. And now, they had to figure out how to wield this power without falling victim to it. Over the next few days, Noah and Alara worked together to uncover the hidden layers of the core system. They studied the complex codes, deciphered the ancient symbols, and tried to understand the fail-safe that had been hidden deep within. It was a long and difficult process, but they couldn't afford to waste any time. The alien forces were still out there, and they knew that if they didn't find a way to control the core, they would be vulnerable to attack. Finally, after days of working tirelessly, they discovered the key to unlocking the fail-safe. It was a simple code, a series of numbers and symbols that had been hidden within the core system. Alara entered the code, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the core began to hum, its energy pulsing more steadily than before. "The fail-safe is gone," Alara said softly, her eyes filled with relief. "We did it." Noah let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had done it. They had unlocked the core, uncovered its hidden fail-safe, and ensured that humanity would not be enslaved by the very power they had unleashed. But as the core's energy stabilized, Noah couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface. The power they had unlocked was vast, and the consequences of using it were still unclear. They had made it this far, but what came next? And what would the galaxy think when they realized that humanity had the power to control the stars? As Noah and Alara stood in the glow of the core, they knew one thing for certain. The future of humanity was in their hands. And now they had to decide what kind of future they wanted to build.